Ready, set, go.
Welcome to The Sweet Spot, an Updog podcast. I'm Andrea Morissette.
And I'm Jack McCauley.
And today we have our awesome guest, Jack McCauley. Everybody give it up for Jack. Whoop, whoop. We have
Jack,
two Jacks.
thanks for joining us.
Thank you,
That's
guys.
right. It's the Jack double shot.
Yeah, it's the Jack double shot. So anytime we say Jack, both of you have to just jump and be ready for whatever the question is. Or I think we should call Jack McCauley Other Jack just for this episode. And then your primary Jack, what do you think? And then if next time Other Jack invites us on a podcast, you can be Other Jack.
Okay, that was confusing, but I think I got it.
It works for me.
Great. Okay. So who doesn't know Jack McCauley? Anybody raise your hand if you don't know Jack McCauley. He is from the Maryland area, and he runs a club out there that I frequent. I love all the people out in that Northeast area. So, Jack, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Tell us about your club, about your dogs, about your area. Ready, go.
So, my pug is barking in the background, my wife's pug, she's out of town. I operate at a BFF Pet Services, which is a dog training business my wife owns and I work for her. Our disc dog club is Chesapeake Disc Dogs. But honestly, I play mostly with mad dogs, Mid-Atlantic disc dogs for our competitions. And obviously in Maryland area, we're rich with a lot of good players that have really developed over the years. And can you hear the dog barking? Can you hear?
I think there's a noise canceller on Zoom.
Yeah.
We can't hear any of that.
Yeah. Sleeps all day until I decide to go talk.
Now we can hear her.
And all of a sudden she starts. So I'm just giving her a little communication now. So anyways, I am from the Southern Maryland area. We've developed a lot of players here, mainly through you, Dre, working a lot of workshops, seminars, jam camps, that kind of thing. Our club is just really small. We used to do a lot of toss and fetch. I primarily stick to competing at Mid-Atlantic Disc Dogs. There's guys welcoming us with open arms. And I'm hoping that our club here is going to start hosting some smaller updog events. I'm waiting on Kat to finish grading my test before I can be certified. I am a certified freestyle judge, but really looking excited to host some updog games coming up.
Get on that, Kat.
It's in my queue.
There you go. I knew there'd be voice of God coming from somewhere in this call.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. All right, Dre, so let's get into it. So I know you were unable to go to Skyhoundz, which right there is a little bit of a frustration point, I know, for you, because sometimes things get scheduled over the top of other things, and then players have to make tough decisions about where they want to be and where they where they can spend their time and money.
It really dictated my whole season, to be honest. It was right before Hyperplay had announced the finals dates. It was maybe not even a week before when I got the message asking me to judge the EC. So EC is a short for European Championships, just kind of shorthand for that event, and that is a USDDN qualifier. So it's not a World Championship event. It is the European Championship, but it's also a qualifier. So anybody can attend that event, but the only people that could win the European Championship are players from Europe. So sometimes you'll see even a couple different podiums from that event, which is really interesting. So let's say players from Asia and Mexico and all over the world come to this event. They win as far as the score is concerned. If they're not European players, they don't actually win the European Championship. They podium at the event. They win the awards for the event. But as far as the European Championship, it has to be a European player. So it's an interesting event because it does draw players from all around the world. In my opinion, it has the most saturation of players from around the world, obviously the least saturation from American players. But at American events where we host most of the world championships, you see 95% representation maybe from American players. And then you see a very small percentage maybe one or two people from various countries around the world that are able to make the trip. So the EC is interesting and unique in the way that many people find it really simple to travel to Europe. Many people are comfortable traveling within Europe. And so you see this really wide variety of very competitive players that are on the field all at the same time live. So that's super exciting about the event. It was a huge honor to get invited. And so I was really excited to go out there and do that. I was an easy yes. And then to get back to your original question, about 4 days later, I found out that it was conflicting with Skyhoundz. So I did not compete in any Skyhoundz all year long. I avoided events that had Skyhoundz as one of their qualifier days and chose events that had qualifiers I'd be able to attend. I don't like going to events and potentially taking a Q spot if I don't intend on going to the finals, because people spend their money and they really want those Q spots, and to kind of flush one down the toilet is something I wouldn't appreciate if I was one of those players that fought for that Q. So I just avoid the event if I know I can't participate in the finals. So I am out of the loop from Skyhoundz from the whole year. I haven't participated in any events. It's like, I miss it. I want to know what happened. I kind of want the scoop and the lowdown. And it's a bummer that, they were scheduled at the same time. I understand for international events, it's hard to, avoid conflict. But EC is one of the ones that really does draw people from all around the world. And if we want US to be represented well, I don't know. It's sad to have someone have to choose between being represented in an American final like Skyhoundz, or choosing not to go to Europe. And I think a lot of people would just drop going to Europe. So our representation is pretty low there.
Well, and you also wonder if that impacts, people coming to Skyhoundz as well. What I'm going to say, like, I haven't crunched the numbers, so I'm only going by like what I remember in my opinion of what I saw at Skyhoundz. But I believe the number of international players at Skyhoundz, I believe, was down this year. I didn't see as many international players. So I wonder if that could impact both ways, right? Like American players going over to Europe, and then any European players or people who might attend the European Championship, maybe from Asia or wherever, also not then coming to Skyhoundz, and perhaps they would have if the dates were different.
Right.
Obviously this is an Updog related podcast. So, I mean, all you Updoggers that wonder why we do Updiff the following year in the kind of the spring, this is exactly why. We didn't want to have people make really tough decisions about their vacation time or their money. It's everything is kind of really clustered around that month and a half in the fall, and it can be very tough to try to get to everything that you want to get to.
Yep. And we do have other challenges, obviously, hosting it in the spring, and disadvantages to that as well. But we do feel like it gives people the maximum amount of opportunity to be able to participate in Updog, as well as the qualifiers that are happening later on in the fall.
I was looking forward to competing in my first Updiff next year, but my dog's injured. Well, he has a genetic issue that he had surgery for. So I was going to compete in freestyle, looking to get my points for the first time. I love the fact that it's hosted in the spring for that very reason. So, and I haven't been able to compete. I've been coaching high school football for many years. So I retired from that, and now I'm full-time able to compete and train dogs. So looking forward to it next year. I hope to attend, if nothing else.
That would be cool, Jack. Yeah, we need to get you. We need to get you into the Updog freestyle.
Yeah, my dog won't be able to get the points that he needs for it this year, because he won't be healed in time.
Right.
So definitely, he's young. He'll be 2 this month, and so hopefully the following year in 26 we'll get to represent. So we're looking forward to competing in some freestyle and Updiff.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. So Dre, like the European Championships happened, but then didn't happen. Can you explain what went on there?
Yeah, I guess that is part of it. And, so here's the interesting part of it. From the outside perspective, somebody who wasn't there, I totally get that that's why that's the first question. I totally get it. And from people that were there, I totally also get why it didn't occur to me that would be the first question. It was, I would say, my first experience ever being in an event that was even close to the vibe of Updiff. It was so cool. It was like joyful and community and positivity and self-expression, and the vibe there was lovely. So yes, it was cold and rainy the whole time.
Well, that makes it like up diff automatically.
Right? I joked about that through the whole thing too, because they were like, it's going to be rainy. I'm like, y'all don't even know. And they're like, it was going to be windy. And I was like, it's like a 10-mile-an-hour wind. Like, y'all don't even know. So, yeah, it was maybe 1/3 of the intensity of up diff as far as elements were concerned. The only reason why the event stopped was because of the way they managed the city. They had to open floodgates from the city, and that was one of the wash basins. That was it. We were all safe. And the
So was it going to flood the field? Is that what was going to happen? Or?
Yeah, they flooded the field. So basically they were in communication with the event host the whole time. And they let them know stage by stage, if they thought that was going to happen or not thought that was going to happen. And then, if it was going to happen, we would have this time window. And literally the moment we got the call, I was judging. We had just finished a freestyle team, and they were like, okay, stop, bring everybody over. And we called everybody over, and within 5 minutes, the event had been done. Like, the next player was lined up. I was like, oh, like, what a heartbreaker for that player, right? Like, there was people out there on the quad line going next. I talked with them. It was like, oh, it was a heartbreaker. But it was like, it was over, boom. And then everybody just like, boom, and went in different directions. And it was the all hands on deck thing. And people were like joyfully running through the mud, pushing dumpsters. And we all, like, literally all the competitors went in the middle of the field and did this dance, this line dance that was being led by one of the players. And she was like running to every wall, like running around the field doing this line dance. And it's one of the traditions of the event. So yes, it did end before we got through about half the freestyle teams. We got through the whole small dog division and the starter division, but only half of the open teams. So I'm grateful that half of the teams got to play. I'm bummed that the other half didn't get to showcase their freestyle. I think that would probably be the only thing that was missing for me, even though the event didn't like finish. So I think, it was, I say this over and over again. I love when weather events come into big qualifiers or big finals events. I think it's a separator. I think it shows who knows how to handle their dog in different conditions. I think the first day we had pretty easy conditions in regards to wind, and the scores were closer together than you would see if there was 5-mile-an-hour more winds. The next day we had a little bit of wind and everything went all over the place. And we only got to see maybe 10 or 15 teams that day before we stopped. So and that was one of the things I wanted to talk about too, is like, running these multi-day events, there's always that conversation of like different conditions on different days. And
yeah,
welcoming down to the rough border. And
so let's dig into it a little bit and start talking a little bit about freestyle and freestyle scoring, because like weather can impact that. I know probably not as extreme as at the European Championships, but at Skyhoundz, of course, we had the hurricane coming through. It didn't come right through Chattanooga, but it like was skirting to the west of Chattanooga, I believe. And so we were just getting like bands of rain every once in a while. Not bad wind at all. The wind was fine. I think it was like gusts up to like 15 miles an hour, but not steady. But what that means is that like most people went out, had no wind, no rain. Some people went out, had a little bit of wind and some rain. Like there was a situation where like it rained hard for about 15 minutes. So there was probably 3 or 4 teams that went out there in hard rain. Meanwhile, then the rain just completely stopped and we continued on, like it's just one of those things.
Sounds like my first
luck of the draw. What's that?
My first Skyhoundz event I ever attended, 2013, 2014, somewhere around there. That's when I first met you, Dre, and it was pouring the rain. It was a bloody mess. And my first up div event, it was snowing sideways. But Dre, you talked about like the atmosphere being so cool, and anything close to what up diff was. When I went to up diff, I was moved. I was recording video for a lot of that, and literally had goosebumps throughout that. And it was the wind blowing the snow going sideways, tent tops coming off. I have a video, and I don't even think I've ever shared this with you, Jack, but a video, you look across as someone's playing freestyle, and there's 15, 20 people on one spot cheering their butts off. It was just a moving moment that they were standing in that weather with everyone else. And that's what I fell in love with Updiff right away, or Updog, because it was so inclusive. People were very expressive, like you said. And I just felt like everybody was so welcome, including me, and nobody knew me there. It's funny that both the major events I attended were horrible weather conditions.
Yeah. So, I think that's a big separator. It's really the luck of the draw. So like what I was saying is, that's my first overall world championship. When I won with Leap, AWI, and it was pouring rain for everybody else, and like the skies parted, it was clear, I jammed, and then as soon as I was done, the skies opened up and started dumping again, and I won. So I think like sometimes that works in our favor and sometimes it doesn't. Like that's just part of the subjective nature of the sport. And you'll even see some really like old school players like sandbag walking out there to try and get a little better wind, or like all of a sudden untie both of their shoes or forget their dog's leash or something, and it gets them on the field a minute later and hoping the wind will break, or rushing out there but like, come on judges, like pick it up because there's no wind right now, like I want to get started with my freestyle.
Yeah, I don't mind the rain at all, because obviously in Florida I play in the rain.
Yeah.
We have events and it comes down, and as long as it's not thundering and lightning, we continue to play, as long as the field is not like completely drenched or unsafe or anything. But like rain, I don't mind. And wind, like I think like you were saying, like it can be a separator. So like I can adjust my game and play in the wind now much, much better than I used to be able to. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I personally, as a competitor and somebody who loves watching freestyle, I don't like it, because I know what I'm watching is
What's
not
possible. It's not the full
their
deal.
best, right?
Right.
It's not, they've taken out some high level tricks. They've changed things up a little bit, and yeah, they're managing the wind, but I'm not seeing like their coolest stuff, like,
Right.
and so that's why I don't like the wind. But but it is
That
what
was
it
the
is.
experience. That was the experience at EC. And when I judge that I am on the lower part of the scale in regards to, I'm considering the absolute best in the world as top criteria, which in USDDN and player format would be 2.5 points per element, right? So 2.5 is the best that I've ever seen. Like that's the best. And so you don't give away 2.2s and 3s unless it's like things are amazing that are happening. So a median score for 2.5, right, is 1.25. So 1.5, 1.6, that's just above average type of score. But I think when you look at how that adds up into the 6s and 7s, then people might think that they're not a quality player or a top player. But it's if the difficulty's not there, if the execution isn't there in the environment that you have, there's nowhere to pull that score from. I think that's one of the interesting things about judging in different conditions is in the wind and rain in that scenario, especially in Europe where people tend to be more conservative. The first thing that they're going to do is simplify. And then you add the difficulty or the pressure around being at a big event like the EC, where there's like monster players there that are going to be able to throw down, right? And so you have to balance, can you actually throw this thing in the wind, and the stress around that, or simplifying and oversimplifying and end up losing whatever percentage of your player score because there's the difficulty's not there. So we saw a lot of that.
So one of the things we didn't mention, and I hope the listeners picked up on this, is so the European Championship was a USDDN freestyle competition. So they were using the USDDN rules and scoring criteria, and which, if anyone has ever taken the Updog freestyle judging course, that I always mention, because just as a player, other than Updog, because I love playing Updog, but of course I don't compete like for real in Updog, like, because I don't compete at Updiff or anything like that. But other than Updog, USDDN is my favorite venue to compete in, and a big reason why is exactly what Dre's mentioning there, is like I know when I get my scores, I know better what those scores mean because there is an entire write-up, an entire, like, for those, I'll use my education term of a rubric. So a 0 to a 2.5, and I know that I have to do certain things to get a higher score. I know as a player, I know what those things are. And that's why I really liked USDDN and playing in US, and not, I say in past tense, even present tense, like I'm going to USDDN in a couple weeks. And at the end, like, even though there's still judge fluidity, like, it's impossible. We're humans, right? You know that you're not going to get the exact, like, if Jack was judging my routine one weekend and Dre judged it the next one, I am positive that they would not have the exact same score, but they'd be close. And I would know based on my sheet that I got back from USDDN what the judges liked in my routine, what they didn't like in my routine. And I just think that that is super important for players and our players getting better. You know, if players get good feedback, then they know what they need to do to continue to get better. They know what they need to stop doing, maybe if they're doing something that they're not getting their points for. And again, that's why Updog was kind of created the way it was in terms of its freestyle. That's why I love playing USDDN. And I really I think it's hard sometimes, like changing over here our conversation to Skyhoundz. I think it's hard sometimes in other venues if the criteria is not as clear and we don't know, well, what does a 7 mean? What does a 5 mean? How come nobody at the World Finals got a 5, or how come nobody got a 10, or whatever it is? Like, I had a lot of updoggers who we just had, you talk with people and you have freestyle conversations because we love freestyle, right? And there were updoggers that were at Skyhoundz and they were asking me, like, because we saw, like, just like Dre said, we saw the first round of scores come out, and then we saw the toss and fetch scores come out. And so people start talking and they're like, well, why do you think you got that in this category? Why do you think you got that in this category? And I think it's difficult when you don't have set criteria and lists of things that say, here's how you do well in this particular area. It's hard for the player to walk away and go, okay, that's what I need to do better on, or that's why I got that particular score. And it's honestly, sitting in the judge's chair, it's harder too. Like, if I don't know what this particular organization is asking me for, I think that makes it challenging for the judges as well.
It just makes it subjective. Like, the less criteria they give you, the more of your own you're going to use to determine what makes a 6 and what makes an 8. I think that what I think about anytime I judge in any organization is the rubric that we created for Updog. Like, I take whatever the maximum score is and I cut it in half and I say that's the average. And some people might start the average of 2.5 at 1.7 or 8. And that's not half for me. 1.25 is half for me. That's average, 1.25. So if I give you a 1.6, you're above average. You're half a point above average almost. Out of a 2.5 point scale, that's a lot above average. But then people will look at the score and be like, I only got a 6 from Dre or a 7 from Dre. She might not like me. It's not that. It's that I'm comparing that one element to the absolute best possible throw in the world, done perfectly successful 4 different ways by somebody, and that's happened before. That I've seen it happen before. So that to me is a 2.5. So unless you're somewhere close to that where I see stuff I've never seen before, or I'm amazed by how something is executed, it's not going to be in the 2.3 or 4 or 5 range. And I feel like I have to save that because it deserves that saving. The amount of time and training and dedication it takes to do things that have that much ingenuity and that much difficulty deserves that 2.2 difference between, excellence and never been done before, or nobody else here at this event can do this thing.
Dre, I'd like to ask you a question about that scoring, because I felt like becoming an Updog freestyle judge helped me in Skyhoundz judging. Exactly the same thing that you're saying. But I see, like, at a lot of local events, people will score much higher than they will at Worlds.
Sure.
And I obviously think the competition level is higher. But when I'm at a local event and I'm judging Skyhoundz, I judge as if it were the best throw, right, not the best throw of the day on the field. And because there's not the strong criteria like Updog has, you see that variance. Am I imagining that, or do you see that as well? Lower
What?
scores at
Yeah,
finals.
and Jack can speak to this too, but what I think happens more on a local level is that people tend to score between 5 and 10 points. They avoid the bottom part of the scale. And so that smushes things together. And if something makes them feel good, they're willing to put it in the 9 range. And a lot of times I think at local events, there shouldn't be any 9s at most local events. Maybe there's one player, maybe there's 2 players that can have a good day and pull that off. But I think, again, if we're talking about 10 being best in the world, in that 9 range, it's not easy to hit that, in my opinion.
Right. 10 should be best in the world, hitting the criteria that's specified by the organization, not I was the best that day. Like there's just because we're doing a local doesn't mean that somebody should get an 8 or a 9 or a 10. Like if you didn't earn an 8 or a 9 or a 10, I always just feel like that's actually hurting the player. It's not helping them, because if let's say that I'm at my local club, I'm the best player in my local club, but there's really not a ton of great players in my local club, like world finals levels, let's say. And I'm getting these 9s and these 9.5s, and then I go off to the world finals and I got slammed with like a 6 and 7, and I'm like, oh my gosh. If I would have known way ahead of time that I needed to work on stuff, I could have been working on it. But instead I got like slammed at this world final, and I realized, man, I got a lot of work to do. So I don't think we're not doing anybody any favors by giving away an 8.5 or a 9 at a local when they didn't really, earn it. But then the question also becomes, well, what does it mean to earn it? Like if that criteria isn't specific, depending on the organization, then I don't know if they earned it or not, really. Then it becomes a little bit more subjective. And that's what's always been challenging about freestyle. I love the game. I love the fact that you can like I can score an 8 in a totally different way than Jack can score an 8 or Dre can score an 8. Like we can all do it with our own unique style and our own flair and everything. But I need, as a judge, I need something to help me to know that these 3 players did score an 8, not just me making up a number.
You setting a scale based on what you think good freestyle is. Yeah, I think, and this conversation did come up a little bit right before AWI, I think, where Vanessa had posted a question about judging. And the consensus was really like at a club level, just happy to have people that can judge. So what I tell my students is that whatever judging they receive at a local level doesn't mean anything. Like it's just, you can't hold on to the numbers of it. It doesn't mean anything. It builds your confidence and your knowledge in your sport to a club level. But once you start winning at a club level, you have to go somewhere else I suggest you go somewhere else other than finals and you get clobbered there, and then go somewhere else and get clobbered and get notes and feedback from other places, and then go to finals, so that your finals experience is a little bit closer to what you would expect from traveling. Because it really is, it's club bias. It's not a bad thing. It's just naturally what happens when everybody kind of does the same tricks. Like at EC, great example. At EC, almost every single player had a backstall dog catch and a reverse vault. I was like, what is it with reverse vaults and backstall dog catches? Like, it was the Ahon arm overs of EC.
Oh.
Like everybody, I was like, oh, I'm watching it again. And I said it to a couple of the players. They're like, well, it shows good dog. I know it shows good dog skill, but like every single person is showcasing that. It's like their flip catch.
Like,
it's just a flip.
Did everybody do a big over? Those seem to be really European things too.
Everybody's into the somersault over this year. It was a somersault over thing. Yeah.
I mean, that happens everywhere. Like, we talked about like, that's why another good reason to travel. Like even you don't have to travel to Europe. Like just go to like a few states over. When Dre, when you were down here with our club, and like we had our unit of people, like we started generating a little style of like what we did in Florida versus what took place in Georgia. And so it's interesting. You don't have to travel far, but like I'm sure if I went up to Jack's local club and I played up there, people would be like, what the heck are you doing? Like, that doesn't look like what we do, and probably be saying the same thing. Why is everybody up here doing whatever? Like, I don't know, Jack, what's something everybody does up there?
Um, well, I'm not a shuffle fan, mainly because I can't do it. But that's, I mean, you'll see that, and because Skyhoundz is influenced that catch ratio,
Yeah.
you'll see that shuffle a lot. I can compete at our local club, and I have a more difficult routine, I think. And if I have 3 drops and someone else has 1, they're going to
win.
They're absolutely going to beat me, no matter the degree of difficulty of theirs. And I don't know if that's universal, but Dre's trained a lot of us, so you'll see a lot of Dre stuff come out of our club locally. I mean, we've had probably close to 60 different players here that you've trained, maybe more. And that's not including online classes that you've trained. But locally at our workshops for years. So you do see a lot of similar styles. I'm not sure. We've stolen some of Jack Faley's stuff. I have a move called the Faley that we kind of butchered really bad, and it never ended up looking like Jack's move. I even showed it to him one time. He's like, what is that? I was like, it's the Faley. We call it the Faley. So it ended up being something else because the person and the people doing it couldn't do it the way he did it. But it's something that I love. So yeah, we steal from everybody. But I do think we all play, you would see Dre style come out in all of our players definitely here.
And Jack, that brings back to that conversation that we were talking about earlier about Skyhoundz and simplicity versus and catch percentage, catch ratio, and difficulty, and how much that's covered or in the rules. Like, if we look at the description of the player category, how much import does difficulty have in there versus success?
Well, and one of the things, that some people don't know, that the success category or the catch ratio that we usually just call it the catch ratio, it's not just a mathematical thing at Skyhoundz. So like you could get a 100%, you could catch everything, and you may not get a 10 in catch ratio or in success because perhaps maybe you were doing a lot of those juggles or you were doing a lot of shorter tosses or whatever. And so the judge may say, well, yeah, they caught everything, but it wasn't as high of a difficulty level. So I'm going to give them a 9 or an 8.5 or something like that. And I will say, from looking at the scores, like, I was very perplexed about that category this year. Like, Ferris in both of his rounds had 2 drops in each round. So he had a 9 catch ratio, if mathematically. And in one of his rounds, he got a 7.5 as his catch ratio. And then in another round, he had a 7.75. Every other year that I have been at Skyhoundz, every other year at the World Finals, Ferris's catch ratio, Ferris's success score was either equal to his mathematical or higher than, not ever lower. So I have no idea.
The success judge just didn't like you guys.
Right. I have no idea like what I did to the success judge or like what they were looking at or whatever.
Was it, Jack?
I mean, that's that. It's just what happens. But like, I would love to know what it was, like because I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I don't know. So it would be great if I did know, because then I could go, okay, if I ever judge in front of that group again, I need to do more of this, or I need to do less of that. But also in my mind, it shouldn't come down to if I'm ever judged by that group of people. It should just be if I'm ever judged at Skyhoundz. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I know it's hard to be consistent across everything, and you can't be, but it would be nice if we could close the gap of scores, like if we could say at Skyhoundz, this is really what they're looking for. At AWI, this is what they're looking for. At Updog, this is what they're looking for.
Yeah. I mean, I've spent a lot of time reading over the paragraphs of information that are on the websites in regards to each of the rules from those organizations. We did it when we were developing Updog rules, and I used to review it every year when we had this conversation. This conversation is why Updog exists. This exact conversation is we would come home from a Skyhoundz event and be like, why did I get this score? And how do I, because at the time, you and I were hungry for whatever we needed to do to improve our score to be the best, to finish or qualify. The Florida region was so competitive that just qualifying felt impossible, much less because Skyhoundz was still regional back in the day. Skyhoundz was still regional, so they didn't have open qualifiers but two. There was one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast. And that was the only one you could just go to that was outside your region. And there was only two queue spots.
I think there was
Three,
I
maybe?
think there were 3 for open freestyle, and I think that there were 2 for like microdog.
Microdog or something. Yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, it was just incredibly difficult. We would go to finals and there'd be like 28 teams at finals because it was so hard to get in. And
Yeah.
that just, you in order to play, it created this hunger for every bit of detail that we could to, what do we need to do to actually get to the show? And I think that created this hunger for us to have understanding about exactly what the criteria is. Like we became students of this game. Like what really are we working towards? What are we training towards? And it was really nebulous. It's not clear. There weren't small enough categories to be able to measure what part of this paragraph of information is where I lost the point. There's no feedback from a judge. They're not broken down into sections. It's just one whole category. So from a player receiving that, it's confusing. But from a judge perspective too, it's like if you're not given that structure, what else do you have to go on other than how you feel?
Right. Well, your experiences and I mean, I think regardless, USDDN, Updog, I mentioned those two because they have, in my opinion, more strict criteria. But even those, you're still going to get fluctuations because, I always tell Kat, it can be that I don't like Labradors, and so I'm subconsciously giving like a quarter point less to Allison's Labrador, which I would never do. But anyways, like it could be that, or it could be like on the way to the field that morning, we were racing out of the house. I didn't get breakfast. I got to the event and I sat right down and started scoring. And now I'm 2 hours into it. My stomach hurts and I'm not paying as close attention as I was 2 weeks ago at that event. I mean, we're all human. It can happen. But we know that those things exist, but we got to try to, I think we got to try to help our players by giving them as tight scores as we can and as best feedback as we can. Let me shut up, Jack. You haven't said anything in a while, so let me see if you have any questions or anything. But then I want to hit back on the success thing that Dre was talking about. But go ahead, Jack.
Well, when you talked about the judging, I had to pass a test for USDN to become a judge, and now you have to retake the test. That's a new change. But it was pretty detailed to pass the test. For Skyhoundz, I had 0 training. Hey, you've been playing freestyle for a while. You're pretty good. Let's have you judge. And then didn't even get any pointers. It was just wherever my scores were. I had some conversation in there. Like one of them, for instance, head judge had been judging for a long time, was judging disc management with the dog bringing the disc back to the player was good. And he was upset when other players' dog would drop it at a distance. And I'm like, I cue my dog to drop at a distance. That's a good thing because I want to pick the disc up there later. But it wasn't until I had the Updog freestyle training that not only did I open up a lot for me as a judge and understanding the game, it helped me as a player. And I think anyone playing freestyle and Updog, whether they want to judge or not, should take that judge's course. It will make you a better player in every organization. I've always built my routine off of USDDN scoring, even for Skyhoundz. I use that format of 2 dog catches, 2 overs, passes to build my routines. Mm-hmm. But I just finished the Updog test to become a judge for the games. And I learned as much from taking the test because it forced me to study and research and really dig in as I did from the overall training. There has to be a requirement for judges, and you're not going to change until that happens. One of my pet peeves is having only 5 discs on a field. I actually think it sometimes increases the risk of injury to a dog because we're rushing. That's a big thing. That's a safety factor more than anything. But understanding disc management in Updog and why you're allowed more discs, it just opens up the game for you. But learning how to judge and passing a score, what do we meet for 6 weeks? judging, looking at routines. I was even embarrassed sometimes to judge those routines. I felt like I wasn't giving good enough scores, and I'm pretty low on the score compared to other people. But it was an eye-opening experience, and I think every organization should have that. That should be a requirement.
I think one of the things that was mentioned, going back to that post that was on the Distog discussions, and some people were saying, because we were talking about diversity in the judges chair, and of course I think diversity in the judges chair will create a better overall score. It will create a better opportunity for the judges to see what's happening, and whether that diversity is gender-based or geographic-based or experience-based, diversity will definitely be better. I wouldn't want 3 people from my local club judging me at the World Finals, because I already know they would judge me really hard. And because they've seen everything, they wouldn't be impressed by anything. And one of them would be my wife, and she'd be like, "Yeah, you could have done that better, Jack."
Could have done better.
Right? But like, just saying, like, that's an extreme example. But like, diversity is definitely important on the judges panel. But one of the things that came up in that conversation was the fact that sometimes it's really hard to get anybody to volunteer to be a judge. And so you find yourself like, okay, let me just grab this person. And, to say, like Updog, that's why with Updog we say, like, you have to have a head judge that has taken the freestyle judging course and has passed. We haven't said that about every person sitting in the judge's chair. We'd like to at some point, like that's where we're trying to get to. But we know if we did it right now, that would close down a bunch of opportunities for people to play freestyle. And I'm sure it's the same in other organizations, so we got to find some balance, I think, with how can we get our judges the experience that they need, the training that perhaps they need, but at the same time, don't make it so challenging that, you don't get the numbers that you need to play, because everybody who's interested in freestyle in our local club, just speaking from our local club, everybody who's interested also wants to play. We do get people that volunteer and want to and occasionally help out, but then it's like, all right, well, maybe then rotate out, and maybe next time you get to play and somebody else steps in to help judge or whatever. So I know that there's challenges with finding people to sit in the judge's chair.
Didn't we do that with Canis Major back in the day? We used to have rotating judges. Didn't we do that? I think we did that back, like, there was an extra week or whatever to the club event because we wanted the judges to be able to have a week off to be able to fill in as judge. There's whatever.
We might have done that. Yeah, I can't remember exactly, but
yeah. So anyway, that does speak into that it's just difficult enough to find people to judge. What I do in our local club is if I say yes to judging, I'm agreeing to help coach, inform, instruct, guide the other fellow judges from before we even start, kind of setting the tone of communication and using the rubric and breaking things down into how they would score. And then if something seems really off throughout the process, or having that conversation with them, or as things happen throughout the freestyle round, like call it out for all the judges to make it, like that was a take, or, the dog crashed there, or we'll have a conversation about that. Or did you see what just happened there? Use it as a learning opportunity, because yes, our judging class is very valuable. And the whole other half of that is actual practical experience. It's like going to a freestyle seminar and then executing that in a competition. It's 2 totally different disciplines. One of them is learning process, and the other one is being able to apply that learning process, right? So
I wish all I had to do was attend the seminar. That'd be so much easier.
This would be great. So much less pressure. Yeah. So I think that when we do go out and judge the people that have taken the judging courses and gotten certified, there's a part there of, contributing to the other judges there by sharing that information, because maybe some people don't know that there's a judging class, or maybe some people don't have the time to be able to invest in that, or whatever. They're just not the kind of people that do that sort of thing. You could still share that knowledge when you're judging. And I find that I do all the time. And people, anytime people ask me questions about why my score is a certain way, I'll take the extra time to explain how the category works and what average looks like, and how I score things. And it might appear lower than somebody else's scoring because I'm using the whole scale. And I think that that is better suited for organizations like USCDN and Updog, where there's clear criteria. Things are, it's not as nebulous of a number. I can certainly and do, judge other events, AWI and Skyhoundz events. It's just, it's less broken down into, so it's just like you just sort of pluck a number that's a little better or a little worse than a round that you set your scale with earlier that day based on that 5 is average. Like, so there's just a different level of detail, I think, that helps the player grow as freestyle players, if that's what they're interested in doing, is growing as freestyle players. The more we break it down into categories, the more we communicate with them, I think the more clear it is for them to be able to grow.
I do believe if you take the Updog freestyle judging class, you will be a better player in every organization that you compete in. It immediately improved my ability to use the field, incorporate the shapes, and understand, because I do think that judges, even in Skyhoundz, that are really experienced are kind of looking at the same criteria that is in Updog. It's just not guaranteed that they're going to score you for that criteria, but a good seasoned judge is going to know what they're looking for.
Right. So, it's just, I think that it just contributes to, this is just a different flavor. Skyhoundz is a different flavor. The 5-disc format changes it a lot. The 90-second format changes it a lot. The real strong import on success. And that's just like, if I'm going to go in and order a flavor of Skyhoundz flavored ice cream, that's what flavor it is. And it's not bad or good. Like, some of my dogs are going to be better in that format. Like Freebird is way better in that format than she is in other formats, because that suits her. And Leap was great in that format. It suits him. So, it just depends on the dog. Moxie, she wasn't a great toss and fetch dog, so that format didn't suit her. So I think that, it's just, it's a little bit, some people don't like USDDN format because it's so structured. They feel like freestyle should be free, and they don't want to have to hit certain levels of criteria. And so for those people, AWI, UFO, Skyhoundz is a great format to not have to abide by any particular criteria, and just have the best expression of human and dog and team as you define it. And I think
that's my only, I'm one of those people, Dre. I just wanted to say that. Like, I love USDDN and I love the feedback you get and I love their criteria. I just wish it wasn't like you must do these things, because then I'm like, where's the free and freestyle?
Freestyle, yeah. Yep. So, I think I like to share it with people from that regard of, like, if you don't like those elements of the format, there's another format out there that'll have elements you like. And if you want to play all of them, play all of them. If you only want to play the 1 or 2 that really suit you, play the 1 or 2 that really suit you. But I think all of them are so different that we can really find formats that best honor whatever our goals are in the sport, to just go out and jam, have a great time, or you really want to be a student of the game and investigate the specific elements of criteria. Then formats like USDDN and Updog are going to give you more data to be able to analyze those. I'm a total disc dog nerd, because I like to win. When I win, my analytical nature wants to break it down into small facts I can improve, right? And some people think more theoretically, more openly, and as the concepts. And for me, that's not the way my brain works. So I think it just depends on the person and what's reinforcing to them, because ultimately we're throwing plastic extruded objects through the wind, Well,
and well, first of all, I know that, like, we didn't think we were going to stick around here for this long talking about this. And I think we could probably talk about it for another hour easily. But I'm sure there'll be a part 2, 3, 4, and 5 of this coming soon. But I think one thing I want to just say, that I think that what Jack said about looking for other wins is super important for our teams, whether they're playing Updog or whatever they're playing. And of course, in Updog, we have like personal bests and achievements and things like that. But absolutely what Jack described about somebody saying something nice about their freestyle routine, that has been a huge motivator for me for years. And like Kat knows this about me and would definitely tell you I'm not just making crap up right now. Like we would ride home from the events, and I would just, the things that stuck with me were, this player said they liked this cool throw that I had done, or this, and I work on those things like all year long, and then I try to, showcase them and hope they go well at the World Finals. Sometimes things go well, sometimes they don't. But like if something did go off well and somebody noticed and they come up and they say something, that sticks with me for a long time, way, way longer than whether or not I made the podium or not, or did I make the cut or not. Those kind words, those like genuine, like, man, I really liked this about your routine. It happened to me this year. Somebody that I never knew like appreciated a component of my game came and talked to me about it. And Kat and I talked about it on the way home, and that made my weekend. Now, of course, I love being on the podium as well. I love competing, going for those things, but like those other like intangible things that all of us can make happen for everybody. You know what I mean? Like there's 100 teams there. If everyone would find one person to say something nice to and like point out like, hey, this was really cool. Not made up stuff, but like real stuff, right? Like, hey, I really liked how you did that move with your dog, or can you tell me where you learned this from? Because I want to do that too. Like those conversations, I think, can make the event special for everybody. And then on top of that, I wanted to also say, like, as we kind of wrap this up, that I don't want anybody to think that we are bagging on judges or
Right.
saying anything bad about
Organization
judges,
either,
because
right?
I hope this is coming across as we want to create systems that help judges come up with as consistent scores as possible, make it easier for judges so that they know, I just watched that round and it's somewhere between a 7 and an 8. And it's, my experiences, my thoughts are going to make it somewhere between a 7 and an 8, but I know it's not a 5 and I know it's not a 10. Like helping them to know, like, here's where approximately this score should be. And I think that us as people that are running events and running organizations, if we can help make that easier for our judges, that'll be better. And if it's easier for our judges, it makes it better for our players, because then they don't walk away as confused about like, why did I get this score versus this score, or maybe not even the score, like what did the judge like about what I did, what category do I need to start looking at getting better in, those types of things. I just think feedback's super important.
Updog's a game of strategy. I spent all morning playing 7 Up with a friend and strategizing, trying to find the fastest field, which diagram, which one's going to give the fastest time and the most points, and how we score the most points. And Updog Freestyle is a strategy also because of the scoring system. You can improve from the games, improve your freestyle. And I'm not sure the strategy in other organizations is quite the same. The strategy is more catch the disc or impress that particular judge for that particular emphasis, whatever their flavor is. Whereas I think the flavor is all the same in Updog. It's set, the criteria is set. And that's why my field in front of my house has been a Skyhoundz field for 12 years. And now it's an Updog field painted out here, because that's what I practice. It's painted, it's ready to go. And that's what we practice now here, mostly.
Well, that's awesome. And I do want to say, like, again, I hope it doesn't sound like we were bagging on anybody or any organization, because I love playing Skyhoundz. I've been going for the last, I don't know, 15 years. I think more than that. And if it wasn't for these other organizations, I would have nowhere to go and try to compete.
Right.
And so I think the more organizations we have out there, the more opportunities it is for all of us to play with our dogs. Jack, I appreciate the kind words about Updog. And of course, I think Dre and I'll speak for her too. I think we do think that our freestyle is the best, or else we would change it so that it is the best.
We would.
And we do make tweaks along the way. And we're not saying it's perfect, but we really do try to make a supportive component for our judges so that we can make it supportive for our players. But anyway, I don't want to. I'm done talking. Dre, take over.
I was wondering if it's time to get a little time warpy.
Yeah, let's do that and close this up.
All right.
All right.
because
Does
really
Jack
good.
know? I don't think
can
Jack
have-
knows anything about it.
Okay, so
Um,
here's our time warp challenge. Our time warp challenge, we're going to ask you a series of 10 questions, and you have 60 seconds to answer as many questions as possible. So keep your questions quick and succinct, but we want to know what the answers are. You can, I
Okay,
guess.
I'm nervous.
So if you're really stuck, you could probably skip a question, but they're great questions, so you should just
Wait,
try.
you're asking me?
Yes.
Just me. Okay.
We are both going to alternate asking you the questions. I have my timer. Jack, you're starting, right?
I can start. Yep.
How many
Okay.
discs am I allowed?
That's not one of the questions. We're
Okay.
asking the questions.
Go ahead. I'm ready.
All right, here we go for our time warp challenge. Ready? Oh, that's 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, ready, set, go.
Jack, what is your caffeinated beverage of choice?
Coffee.
What's your favorite movie?
Fletch.
What was the worst job you ever had?
Background investigations, clearance investigations.
Would you rather be in the snow or beach sand?
Beach.
Favorite
Beach.
updog game?
I would have to say time warp.
Killing me. One thing still on your bucket list. 32 seconds left.
Oh, still on my bucket list. I don't really know. I want to fly fish in Montana.
There you go. All right. Favorite dog disc to throw?
It has to be a superhero is my favorite to throw.
All right, 12 seconds left. Would you rather talk like Yoda or breathe like Darth Vader?
Oh, breathe like Darth Vader. I do it anyways.
All right. What's your biggest phobia?
2 seconds.
Snakes.
What's your coolest bird?
A turkey, a wild turkey.
Oh, my God.
Time warp complete.
Those last two were like super quick. Oh, I don't even. What was your phobia? I was so focused on the next question.
Snakes. I'm definitely afraid of snakes. I couldn't live in Florida because of that.
Oh, I didn't even know that was a thing. Cool.
Like I scream like a 5-year-old. I'm just terrified of
Me
snakes.
around cockroaches.
Really?
When I see cockroaches, I'm like on top of the couch, like, nope, not going back to that part of the house again. Nope.
I don't like snakes either, Jack. If you keep everything mowed down, they go elsewhere.
Yeah.
That's a good tip. I need to go mow my lawn today, actually. So
My
maybe I'll
pugs,
go do that.
my pugs, my wife's pugs, I should say. I have 2 sport dogs, but my pugs find the snakes in the yard. You think they don't have good noses, those little flat faces? They're constantly finding snakes.
What do they do with them?
Eat them if you let them. There's
Oh,
pugs.
that's great. They get rid of them.
Oh, they're so
Well,
on.
yeah, you don't want them to find a poisonous one, though.
Yeah, right. Well, I haven't seen copperheads in quite a long time, but that is really the only concern here. But yeah, at night, I'm always trying to keep them back in the yard, watching them close. It's
Killer
hard.
pugs.
What's that?
Killer pugs.
Well, Petunia did kill a squirrel. So she was vicious with it. I mean, that's just scary.
They have like no face. I can just
Maverick chased it down and caught it and wounded it. And Petunia went to sniff it and it bit her, and it was all on. If you've never seen a pug, you have to see Pugnacious Petunia. She is a hoot.
follow her on Instagram.
Yeah.
Pugnacious Petunia. It's worth it. She's amazing. Well, thank you very much, Jack, for joining us today for the Updog podcast. Random conversations about freestyle all around the world. We're very grateful that you jumped in today to have this conversation with us.
Thank you, guys. It's an honor, an absolute honor. Thank you.
Yeah, Jack, again, thank you. And Dre, thanks for jumping on quick. This was something kind of like random that we thought of, and I think it came out great. I hope that we get lots of comments. You guys, if you have opinions about something, put it in the comment section because we would love to keep this conversation going. I know this won't be the last one that we do on random freestyle conversations. I think Dre would like all of them to be on random freestyle conversations, but we can't have that either. So anyways, we hope to see you guys out on an Updog field soon.
Yeah, and just a reminder, guys, if you guys have any topics that you want covered, make sure that you let us know. We're going to be posting that to the Updog discussion page about what things you want to hear about on the Updog podcast. So keep those in mind. Let us know what you want. We want your ideas about what we're going to talk about. And in the meantime, be kind to each other.
And be kind to your dogs.
See you guys later.
Bye. I don't like Labradors.